Today is the final Jamie and Julia episode. In this kitchen.
Oh! Bon appetit.
So hello again, everyone. Welcome back to our kitchen. And yes, I am winding down operations over here. I've made that clear with, me repeatedly telling you that for the past month or so. Yeah, I'm moving out. And I'm using up all the food in here before I leave. So today's recipe is picked because of that. Come over here. Looky what I have here. It's a squab. It's been hanging in here for months and I bought it for some other reason. It never ended up happening and you can tell that it's already thawed out because I'm acting this part right now. But yeah, now it's time. So a squab, for those wondering, is like a baby pigeon, a young pigeon. It's supposed to be tender and kind of fancy and kind of confusing because I don't really get it. I tried making it a couple years ago on this show and I was underwhelmed and I found the whole thing to be a lot of work for not a lot of reward. Not a lot of meat on them bones, really. But that was a couple years ago now, so maybe I have matured a little bit. Maybe I like squab now, so that's what we're gonna find out. To the shelf. All of my books. To the Julia Child section. This one. So I don't believe I've ever used this book on the show before. It is a book debut. Julia Child's Menu Cookbook. The most famous cook in the world presents scrumptious menus for every occasion. So it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a book that you need when you are about to have some company or a big special occasion or nothing. You're just some dude in his kitchen with a squab, which is definitely the case today, but I did find something for that occasion also. It's a rock Cornish hen, broil roasted in wine. Okay, so different bird, right? Well, this is a fine recipe for any small young bird, like a pigeon, quail, or partridge. Pigeon. Of course, this recipe is part of a menu, right? There it is. I'm not gonna make all of that. I'm gonna make the giant straw potato gallette because that looks good. Where is the gallette in the photo? I spy it there underneath the bird. I'm also gonna make some cherry tomatoes tossed in butter and herbs. Yeah, so is this all excessive for one tiny bird? Yes, but we're gonna send this squab off in style. So let's get to work. Okay, so we're gonna prep our squab and, oh boy. Okay, so yeah, the squab still has his head on. Now I can't show you because a couple months ago, I was making a Peking duck video with a duck that had its head intact still, and that video got fully demonetized. Shocking content is what they told me. So I'm gonna avoid getting myself into a scenario like that again. So I'm not gonna show you the head, not that you were asking. Sorry, squab. I'm just gonna cut off the feet while I'm at it. Can I just use these scissors here? Oh, I can. Okay, I'm gonna remove the backbone. Damn, okay. Turn the bird flesh side up and I pound the breasts with my fists. Guess it's tenderizing. All right, so we want to fold the wings akimbo, like behind the back there. There we have it. Bulmy. She says, thank you, that we have an optional marinade. I'm gonna exercise the option. Salt and pepper. Flip it on the other side as well. Flip it back. I know this is just one bird, but let's just do the full marinade. So that's 2 tablespoons of finely minced shallot. That may just be an onion, but in our minds, let's pretend. That's 1.5 teaspoons of dried tarragon. There wasn't like a whole lot of grocery shopping that I had to do for this recipe because I'm just using up things that I already have. So I hope I have 1/2 cup worth of dry white vermouth, which I don't. I have 1/4 cup worth. We'll make it work. But for one squab, I think that should be just fine. And then it says a couple tablespoons of olive oil, which is optional, and let's go for it. Smother the hell out of that thing. Gonna cover it up and we're gonna marinate this for 3 or 4 hours. during which I will be turning and basting in the marinade. After a few hours marinating away, that bird is marinated. First, I'm gonna scrape off the marinade and dry the bird. Make sure to keep it akimbo. Reserve the marinade. Wash your hands. Brush with melted butter, of course. That's a given. And it's gonna be skin side down in the pan. Just all the crevices, nooks and crannies, get all the butter up in there. And now we place this under the broiler. Broiler's down here. 5 minutes on the first side. All right, let's have a look. Okay, it's browned, and I gotta flip it over so that the skin side is facing up. It's looking a little pale, I think it needs some sun. I'm gonna brown it for another 5 minutes. Don't forget to baste. I did so a few times in the melted butter. That looks interesting. What am I doing? Here. Put the squab right there for a second on the wooden spoon holder. She doesn't mention anything about reusing the same pan, but that makes sense to me. So let me just remove some of the cooking fat and the juices and whatnot. Mr. Squab, back in you go. She says to season the skin lightly now. Lightly. Or don't forget the pepper. A handful of peeled garlic cloves. Strew them about. And now we have the choice between port or Madeira wine. Or dry white vermouth, but I already used that for the marinade, so which one? I use the Madeira. Eat around half a cup worth. There. And a little for good luck. Great old whack of my Swiss cheese here, which is aged Emmental. Spare no expense, because look how much cheese I have. Going all out with the petite squab, fully loaded. 400 Fahrenheit oven. Recipe says for 30 to 40 minutes, roast it. Keeping in mind that this is for Cornish hens, 3 of them, and or a partridge or a quail or a pigeon. But this is just one and it's tiny. So is 30 to 40 minutes excessive? Maybe. Squab is dark and lean and can easily dry out if it's overcooked. Cook for around medium rare to medium. So I think if I aim for an internal temperature around 130 degrees Fahrenheit, remove from the oven. How about that? And then we gotta baste every 6 minutes. Gotcha. So we're gonna move on to our giant straw potato galette. So I need baking potatoes and I'm having the recipe. So instead of 6, here's 3. And I gotta peel. Oh, I got it, thank you. Here's a bowl of cold water. Potato hangs out in there. Oh, jeez. Okay, so squab has to come out. It's early. Son of a bitch is early. Okay, that only took less than 15 minutes. Way less. 12 minutes. When you're only roasting one of them, I guess that's what happens. It's just so tiny. Keep the little guy in here. So I gotta strew in around half a pound, 225 grams of quartered mushrooms. Quartered, but also just kind of cut them up to the size that I prefer. And I'm supposed to add them in while the squab is in the oven, but since that sucker's done, stop talking and focus on what you're doing. Okay, that should be enough. And I'm gonna keep this in the oven without the squab for 15-20. So the idea is to keep the squab warm in a turned off oven with the door ajar. I have a second oven. I'm gonna do that over there. Okay, so there's lots going on. I hope this all makes sense. Can we beam in the WizKid? This is what I'm using in my food processor today. It is the vegetable slicer thing. And think, Jamie. So she's very specific about what we have to do here, which is remove a potato from the water. And I gotta kind of snip it into pieces that are gonna fit. Vroom, vroom. You know when you're like cutting up potatoes, like for French fries or whatever, you put them in a bowl of cold water once they're sliced so that they don't turn brown really fast, right? Like that's ideally what you want to happen. It buys you a lot of time. The thing is though that it washes away the starch, which is what we need to keep. Anyway, what I'm doing is not removing the starch by dropping it in cold water. You're just supposed to pat it dry in a towel, because the idea is that this galette needs to stick together when I'm doing the whole thing that I'm about to do. Anyway, why did I make so much? So I'm gonna use the biggest non-stick frying pan I got. Layer the base of the pan with clarified butter. She says that using clarified butter rather than like ordinary butter is not gonna have the potatoes stick to the pan. We don't want that. Heat the butter up to very hot but not browning. Line the pan with around 1 centimeter thick worth of potatoes. Season, salt, pepper, a couple spoonfuls of clarified butter. Press firmly down with a spatula. I could have used one potato and I could have used a smaller pan because it's supposed to fit nicely under the squab so that you can barely see it when the squab's on top. I'm gonna have to adjust the size of that. It's okay, well, I'll figure it out. Frequently press down and shake the pan so it doesn't stick. 2 to 3 minutes after the initial browning, we turn the heat down, put a lid on. It's gonna be on a moderate heat for like 6 to 8 minutes. So now that that time has passed, that looks browned, I gotta do the part that I'm dreading, which is to turn it over. I have this splash guard for when you're sauteing meat and you know the fat doesn't fly up in your face. It's happened. So I'm gonna use this to turn this over. Is this gonna work? Oh, it's gonna work. Okay. Please work. Oh, frickin' hell, that works. And then that goes back into the pan. That looks glorious, you son of a bitch. And of course you gotta brown the other side as well. Turn the heat off and just keep that warm, but it ideally has to be served ASAP. Hence why I have to move my ass. Okay, so the mushrooms and the wine, and with a slotted spoon, I gotta remove half of the garlic and the mushrooms. Now, I won't lie, I kind of misread what she wanted me to do, which is to make a brown poultry stock out of half a cup of chicken stock, half a cup of dry white vermouth, and some vegetables, and you know, make a stock out of it. Well, I misread that, and I was just counting on using chicken stock full stop for this recipe. Now I'm changing my tune a bit, and I'm gonna make up my own little bit of, I'm gonna make my own finishing sauce here, which is half a cup of the Madeira wine. And then I have this chicken stock that I would like to use, so half a cup of that. And I'm gonna add that into this pan, along with the marinade, which she has no mention of ever again. Bring to a boil. Once it's boiling, scrape up all the good stuff from the sides and the bottom of the pan. So I'm gonna pour this finishing sauce through a sieve into a saucepan. We got onions from the marinade in there, but more importantly, the pieces of garlic that were left. Rub them through the sieve into my sauce. Bring this to a boil so that I can concentrate the flavor. Okay, so a little while ago, I prepped these cherry tomatoes. I dropped these into boiling water for like 2 to 3 seconds to remove them. Then it was really easy to remove the skin. And she says to also remove the stems, which I found was kind of pointless because they're cherry tomatoes and I don't mind eating them whole. So I left the stems mostly. Anyway, I kept them in the fridge just like so. And now I'm ready to rock. Tablespoon or so of butter in a pan. What's this doing here? Move it or lose it. Melt the butter. Once the butter's bubbling, add in the tomatoes, as well as my freshly chopped up herbs, some salt, a couple cracks of black pepper. Ran out of black pepper, so I'm gonna use a couple cracks of white pepper. Ooh, risque. Shake it all about, and I gotta warm that all the way through. Once it is, turn off the heat. So whenever this finishing sauce is done boiling and like thickening up and you know, I'm gonna add in some enrichment butter. It is optional, but it is Julia Child and I always do what she tells me to do. So here I come with things. I got the mushrooms, I got my squab. First thing though, what I have to do is take this gallette, and that goes on, I'm just winging this actually. That goes on this cutting board. You know what I mean? I gotta make that slightly bigger than my squab. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is make that slightly bigger than the squab. See what I mean? Mushrooms and garlic around the squab. And then tomatoes. So that means that only the sauce remains. I'll see to that in a moment after I do what I'm about to do here, which is sprinkle a little parsley on top and order up. Is that meat there? Most of the meat is in the breast of the squab. There's a little meat on the thigh, maybe a little on the wing, but holy hell. You have to enjoy each bite. What's this? That's what I'm talking about. I've made so many iterations of Julia Child recipes throughout the years. That is more along the lines of just like a classic one. It's like I've had many of those flavors before on the show, but I don't know, that one was rocking. No, that was rocking. What is this lid doing here? I swapped the Cornish hen for a squab. Ended up being a great idea. I gave that squab quite the show too. Marinating it, broiling it, basting it, roasting it. Of course, basting it in the garlicky white wine sauce, topping it with mushrooms, and it was fancy. But me making it, of course, it's still got that rustic vibe to it. So chicken, which wasn't a chicken, it was a squab, but that was cooked nicely. I was aiming for medium originally, but in the end, I just cooked it all the way through. And it was very good. I had no complaints whatsoever. In fact, the gaminess flavor that I experienced the first time I had squab was not there at all. It was like a more intense chicken, kind of. I'm trying to figure out what's the star of the show here, because I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't the squab. First up was the giant straw gallette. When I first took some bites prior to pouring the sauce on top, it was very crispy, but then the sauce really moistens it up and kind of makes it a bit soggy, so I think I preferred it before the sauce was poured on top. Had a very nice buttery flavor to it, and when I say buttery, I mean that thing was soaked in butter, which was good. It's like a hash brown. Giant hash brown with the squab on top. And then the cherry tomatoes, which originally I thought it was gonna be an afterthought. Not the case. I think it may have been my favorite thing on that plate. Strangely enough, I was not expecting that, but they were so juicy. Juicy. Right combination of herbs and butter, and I found the whole dish was cohesive and comforting, and I'd make it for company. This was Jamie and Julia. Bon appetit. Au revoir.
Bon appetit.